My first record came about by accident, Jed. I was working at Virgin Records when Virgin became interested in Jamaican music and went into it in a big way. I was a copywriter for them. I used to write copy for their ads. I used to do radio ads for them, and I used to do sleeve notes and biographical details.
Join producers Habte, Selassie, and Scott Keys for a WBAI marathon special on the life of Jamaican-born poet and recording artist Linton Kwesi Johnson on Saturday night, Sunday morning, January 19th at 1 a.m.
And I just happened to mention to one of the guys there one time that I wrote poetry and I thought it would be a good idea to set it to music. And he said, okay, there's a little 4-track studio somewhere. We'll book you in for an afternoon and see what you come up with. And they liked the demo. They did a 12-inch and then did an album which was voted Reggae Album of the Year by Melody Maker in 78. That was Dread Beat and Blood.
That's the life of Linton Kwesi Johnson on LABBRISH, January 19th at 1 a.m.
All we're doing is defending, so get ready. The war, the war.
Good morning. Welcome to LABBRISH. I am Habte Selassie. LABBRISH is a production of the Jazzmac Associates.
Jimi Hendrix, master guitarist. 106 in the AM, and you are tuned to WBAI 99.5 FM on your dial, and this is, of course, LABBRISH. My name is Dread Scott Keys, and I'm expecting Habte Selassie, but one never knows, do one. This day, of course, was rather historic. Many tens of thousands of people marched on Washington to show their opposition to the war, if one calls it that, in the Persian Gulf. And it was timely, if one can say that. Of course, you heard that Linton Kwesi Johnson is the subject in question tonight on LABBRISH, and we're going to play some of Linton and his thoughts. But we want you to support WBAI by dialing 279-3400 and becoming a listener sponsor to this radio station. LABBRISH has been on the air for 12 years, and we want to keep it on for 12 more. And the only way that we can do that is for you to show your support by going to your phone right now and dialing the number 279-3400 and becoming a sponsor. $50 will get you a membership here at WBAI, and for that $50 you'll be getting our monthly folio, and that way you'll know what's going on all the time on WBAI, 24-hour station, 50,000 watts, pumping 90 miles outside of New York City. So
Forces of victory, and we're coming right through. We're the forces of victory now. What you gonna do? We make a little date, 1978.
Hello, and welcome to Forces of Victory, Linton Kwesi Johnson. My name is Habte Selassie.
And we just forward up to nothing there again. We're the forces of victory, and we're coming right through. The forces of victory now. What you gonna do? We dress in red and we change dress. Dress in green and we're feeling mean. We're dressed in purple and we're dressed in yellow. We're dressed in blue and we're coming right through. We're the forces of victory and we're coming right through. The forces of victory now. What you gonna do? We're coming with the army, so don't you get balmy. We're coming with plane, it's gonna drive you insane. We're coming with guns and we're making the rounds. We're coming with tank and Babylon get bound. We're the forces of victory and we're coming right through. The forces of victory now, what you gonna do? If you call opposition to the poor opposition, them got no ammunition and them got no position. If you call opposition to the
In 1980, Linton Kwesi Johnson was among several poets invited to recite in the Poets' Corner in Britain's Westminster Abbey. Among the crypts of Tennyson and Chaucer, the Jamaican-born Johnson used the occasion to recite his poem, England is a Bitch, which told of the sufferings of black immigrants who endured racism, low-paying and dead-end jobs. LKJ also read Sonny's Letter, a poem dealing with the imprisonment of a black man under sus laws that allow police to stop and search anyone on suspicion. Needless to say, the Archbishop of Canterbury was not pleased by the recital. But then, LKJ has never held his tongue nor his pen, even when at such a formal setting as Westminster Abbey. Johnson's poetry is hard-nosed and intensely political, spotlighting the lives of black people living in Great Britain. Although his works are highly political, they are not polemical. The artist uses incantations, evocative language, set against a one-drop reggae beat. LKJ is one of the founders of the dub poetry movement, in which verse is dubbed over reggae rhythms and is one of the forerunners of today's rap music. Johnson, known simply as the Poet, grew up in London's working-class district of Brixton after his family migrated to England in 1963. However, he spent the first 11 years of his life in Jamaica, where he lived with his grandmother after his mother had moved to Britain.
Galang dada, galang guanyasa. You never had no life to live, just the one life you give. You did your time on earth, you never get your just dessert. Galang go smiling at the sun, galang go satire at the palace of peace. Oh, the water it's so deep, the water it's so dark and it's full of harbor shark. The land is like a rock slowly shattering to sand, sinking in a sea of calamity. I grew up in rural Jamaica. I was born in a little town called Chapelton in Clarendon, in mid-eastern Jamaica. And my parents' family are peasants, people who work the land, you know, grow yams, bananas, cassava, sweet potato, peas, have a few animals, and so on. My parents belong to that generation, went to the city in search of a better life and didn't make out. And my mother eventually ended up in England. My father ended up in Kingston. Constant grief and no sign of relief. Oh, the grass turned brown, so many trees cut down and the land is overgrown. From country to town is just thistle and thorn at the wound of the poor. It's a miracle how them endure the pain night and day, the stench of the care. I spent some time in the hills of Jamaica with my grandmother, and for me that was the most memorable and enjoyable part of my life as a child growing up. It was my grandmother, my sister, and me, and I was like the man of the yard. You know, my grandmother always used to refer to me as her husband. One learned so many things. You learned how to plant things, and the tremendous pleasure of watching it grow. You know, whether it be peas or you stick a root, a piece of sugarcane shoot in the ground and see it take root and grow, or to plant some yams and see it grow. I used to have my own little plot of land, and I used to grow my own things. You know, and tending animals, going bird shooting, you know, just wandering, the freedom to wander and to do things, go swimming in the river, and catching janga fish and all this kind of thing. It was a great life.
Galango Sata in the palace of peace. Me know you couldn't take it, Dada. The anguish and the pain, the suffering, the problems, the strain, the struggling in the vein. They make two ends meet, so that them picnic coulda get a little something to eat. They put clothes pon them back, they put shoes pon them feet. When $1 can't buy a little dinner for your fly. Me know you try, Dada. You fight a good fight, but the dice them did load.
Of course, in a village community like that in Jamaica, in rural Jamaica, most of the social and cultural life revolves around the church, from harvest festivals to what could pass as theater, where people would recite poems or do little skits to raise money to fix the roof or whatever. It was a Baptist church, and it was a little bit more restrained and a little bit more quieter than, say, for example, the revival churches, the revival Zion churches, where they would beat drums and clap hands and play tambourines. In our church, we just sung hymns, and you'd have some good sermons from some fiery preachers and that, but and occasionally people would catch the spirit and so on, and people would get saved and they would go down to the river and be baptized and this kind of thing.
Leaving the island paradise of Jamaica for the cold and dampness of Great Britain proved to be traumatic for LKJ.
Going to school, one would see pictures of England in books, and one would think it's the most unimaginably beautiful place in the world, So when you got there and you saw all these grey, ugly brick houses, and saw smoke coming out of chimney pots and all this kind of thing, and dirty streets. I went on a grey November day that made it worse, And I thought, oh my God, is this England? In the colonies, we have these preconceived ideas about the streets of London paved with gold and all this kind of thing. So it was a bit of a revelation, to say the least.
Bradford town, but the Bradford blacks them a rally round. They say them frame up George Lindo up in Bradford town, but the Bradford blacks them a rally round. Maggie Thatcher and they go with a racist show, but a she have to go. Cause right now, African, Asian, West Indian and Black British stand firm in England in a this year time, yeah.
There were a lot of black kids at the school, which made it not very difficult for me to settle down. There were a lot of Jamaican kids who already ruled their own roost, so to speak, had established their own presence there. And, so I didn't feel out of place, There was at least 30-40% of black kids at the school at the time. You'd be told things like, why don't you go back to your jungle? And I thought, jungle? We don't have any jungle where I come from. That black people live in trees. The thing that they used to say was that blacks eat kitty cat, which is a cat food. But the teachers now, if you were a little bit noisy in class, they would say, shut your mouth, boy, you're not in the jungle now. Or they'd make some kind of racial comment.
Bradford town, but the Bradford blacks them a rally round. They say the fame of George Lindo up in Bradford town, but the Bradford blacks them a rally round. Maggie Thatcher and they go with a racist show, but a she have to go. Cause right now, African, Asian, West Indian and Black British stand firm in England in a this year time, yeah. Or no matter what they say, come what may, we are here to stay in England. And this year time, yeah.
by and large, you made friends with the white kids. There were white guys who were quite happy to be friends with you. They come to your house, you'd go to theirs. You'd find that some of your neighbors would be quite friendly and some of them would be quite hostile. So it was 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. It wasn't just all out racism. Everybody was racist. You'd find some really nice people, who were quite helpful. There is no such thing as racial segregation in England. There's not one single street that I can think of anywhere in Great Britain where it's just all black people living there. It's not like America at all in that respect. In England at school, I remember I used to like poetry that rhymed and told a story, like ballads and those kind of things. But I never really had any literary inclinations whatsoever.
That's 11 on the end.
As Johnson became familiar with the English political terrain and the oppression of black people, he became politically active and became a member of the Black Panther Party.
The Black Panther were incidentally one of several black organizations that sprung up and down England, inspired by the Black Panthers over here, and wanted to do something and organized to take action against police brutality, against racism in the courts, against racism in housing, against racism in the educational system, and so on.
Broke glass, gold blades as sharp as the highs of hate and the stabbings. It's war amongst the rebels. Madness, madness, war. Night number 1 was in Brixton. Soprano B sound system was a beating out a rhythm with a fire. Coming down his reggae wire. It was a sound shaking down your spinal column. A bad music tearing up your flesh. And the rebels themselves.
It was during the black consciousness movement, and James Brown was doing songs like Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, and that kind of thing. And these were the things that we were listening to, and all these rocksteady records from Jamaica coming out, and early reggae records talking about the black man and the black man situation and going back to Africa and Rastafari and all this.
Sound coming down, never kings, music iron. The rhythm just bubbling and backfiring, raging and rising. When suddenly the music cut, steel blade drinking, blood in darkness. It's war amongst the rebels. Madness, madness, war. Night number 3, over the river, right outside the rainbow. Inside James Brown was screaming, soul outside. The rebels were freezing cold. Babylonian tyrants descended, pounced on the brothers who were bold. So with the flick of the wrist, a jab and a stab, the song of blades was sounded. The pile of oppression was vomited, and 2 policemen wounded. Righteous, righteous war. Night number 4 at a blues dance, a blues dance. 2 rooms packed and the pressure pushing up. Hot heads, ritual of blood in a blues dance. Broke glass, splintering fire, axes, blades, brain blasts. Rebellion rushing down the wrong road. Storm blowing down the wrong tree. And Leroy bleeds near death on the 4th night. In a blues dance, on a black rebellious night. It's war amongst the rebels. Madness, madness, war. Night number 5 at the Telegraph. Vengeance walk through the doors. So slow, so smooth, and so tight and ripe and smash. Broke glass, a bottle finds a head and the shell of the fire hurt cracks. The victim feels fear, finds hands, holds knife, finds throat. Oh, the stabbings and the bleeding and the blood. It's war amongst the rebels. Madness, madness, war.
While a member of the Black Panther Party, Johnson discovered literature.
The first book, and that is what made me want to write, was The Souls of Black Folk. I was reading Jimmy Baldwin's The Fire Next Time, later on his novels, of course. The Wretched of the Earth by Franz Fanon, the autobiography of Malcolm X, Seize the Time by Bobby Seale. I began reading poetry by people like Leroy Jones with Amiri Baraka, Sonia Sanchez, Gwendolyn Brooks, Don L. Lee. So the first poets I actually read were Afro-American poets.
This is the age of reality, but somehow we are dealing with mythology. This is the age of science and technology, but somehow we are check the antiquity. When we can't face reality, what we do? We Lego with clarity. Some latch on to vanity, some hold insanity. Some get vision, start preach religion. But them can't make decision when it come to a fight. Them can't make decision when it come to a rights. Man, this is the age of reality, but somehow we are dealing with mythology. This is the age of science and technology, but somehow we are check the antiquity. Them one they gone out of line, them not living through with time. For them say them get sign and them.
Then a guy called John LaRose, who is a publisher in London, runs a black publishing house called New Beacon Books, introduced me to the Caribbean and the African poets like Edward Campbell Brathwaite from Barbados, Martin Carter from Guyana. I came across the poetry of George Campbell from Jamaica, Anthony McNeil from Jamaica, a Rasta poet from Jamaica called Bongo Jerry. In fact, there was a magazine called Savako, and the 3-4 edition of Savako was a seminal anthology in terms of influence on me. There were short stories, all Caribbean writers, short stories, poems, extracts from novels, extracts from plays, and I found it very inspiring. And then again, there was the African writers like Christopher Okigbo from Nigeria. Chikaya Utamsi was writing surrealist poetry in the negritude vein, Senghor, Amy Césaire from Martinique, all of those things I was reading.
Johnson was also influenced by Jamaican reggae sound system DJs like Big Youth.
When I heard Big Youth say, chant, I pray thee, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine of such vain things, which is from the Psalms. For me, this was poetry. I Roy and you Roy and all these early DJs. And in fact, it was the reggae DJs who, because when I began to write at first, it was in English. And it was they who directed me to the Jamaican language, as well as that Savako journal where there were so many things written in dialect in it, and made me realize that I could I could come up with my own poetic idiom, if you like.
I've been living in England for 27 years, and I think that entitles me to say, England is a bitch. When me just come to London town, me used to work on the underground. But working on the underground, you don't get to know your way around. England is a bitch, there's no escaping it. England is a bitch, there's no running away from it. Me get a little job in a big hotel, and after a while me was doing quite well. Them start me off as a dishwasher, but when me take a stop, me not turn clock watcher. England is a bitch, there's no escaping it. England is a bitch.
From the beginning, LKJ used British colloquialisms and Jamaican patois in his poetry because it allowed him to speak directly to the black people about their basic experiences.
And when you go to your bed, you just can't sleep. England is a bitch, there's no escaping it. England is a bitch for true, and no lie me I tell a true. Me used to work big ditch when it cold no bitch. Me did strong like a mule, but
And therefore the most suitable language would be the language that we spoke, rather than some rarefied language which was a little bit remote and esoteric. And I always saw my poetry as or wanted my poetry to perform some kind of function in terms of the black struggle or the black working class struggle. I never saw it in any other way. I didn't see it as some aesthetic thing, or it was a way of getting a message across, or a way of communicating experience, or a way of documenting events, and that's how I've always seen it. I've never seen it as anything else. Obviously, my view of poetry and my idea of poetry has broadened, I hope, and deepened over the years in reading other things and reading other poets. But I still see my own work in that particular context.
There's no running away from it. Me know some of them have work in abundance, yet still they make me redundant. At 55, me getting quite old, yet still them send me to go draw a door. England is a bitch, there's no escaping it. England is a bitch for true, it's where we are going to do about it.
I don't think poetry in itself, only the most conceited of people could believe that their poetry could do anything in terms of changing the world. But I think in general, culture and cultural artifacts and cultural expressions have a role to play in developing consciousness and in kindling the spirit and keeping the flame, the revolutionary flame burning.
According to Johnson, one of the other major influences in his writings and outlook on life was the Rastafarian religion.
In my early poetry, on the language of my poetry, because Rasta language became the language of the youth, whether in Kingston, in New York, or in London, you know. We all use Rasta words like Iria and so on. Rasta vocabulary became a part of my poetic idiom.
Smash their brains in it, cause they ain't got nothing in them. We're gonna smash their brains in it, cause they ain't got nothing in them. Well, some of them say them a nigger hater, and some of them say them a black beater, and some of them say them a black stabber, and some of them say them a packy basher. Fascists and the attack, nobody worry about that. Fascists on the attack, we will fight them back. Fascists on the attack, then we counter-attack. Fascists on the attack, when we drive them back, we gonna smash their brains in. Cause they ain't got nothing in them. We gonna smash their brains in.
I was very much influenced in the 70s, in the early 70s, by the cultural side of Rasta. The fact that there was this emphasis on identifying with Africa, on our African ancestry and our African heritage, and to be proud of it. Which, for me, that is one of the greatest strengths of Rastafari. Bongo Jerry has a line in one of his poems where he talks about the brain whitening. Well, Rasta was like an antidote to the brain whitening thing in the Jamaican context and in the Caribbean context.
And some of them say them a black stabber, and some of them say them a pocky basher. If fascists on the attack, we not go worry about that. If fascists on the attack, we will fight them back.
In reggae music, some of the most beautiful, the most inspired, the most spiritually uplifting and moving records that I heard were those where Rasta, with a Rasta influence and a Rasta input, whether it be the music of the Abyssinians, for example, or the music of Bob Marley and the Wailers. There was a time when I identified with Rastafari as far as being a natty dread. I was never a dreadlocks. I was a natty dread, but I couldn't really identify with the Selassie business, Selassie's, but because I'm not a religious person, even though I grew up in the church.
With the explosion of reggae music onto the world scene, it was quite by accident that Johnson came to put his poetry to music.
Thank you. This one is dedicated to an anti-fascist fighter called Blair Peach, who was murdered by the Special Patrol Group in 1979 on a march in Southall. Reggae the Peach. Everywhere you go, it's the talk of the day. Everywhere you go, you hear people say that the special...
I was working at Virgin Records when Virgin became interested in Jamaican music and went into it in a big way. I was a copywriter for them. I used to write copy for their ads. I used to do radio ads for them, and I used to do sleeve notes and biographical details and that, for the marketing side of things. I just happened to mention to one of the guys there one time that I wrote poetry and I thought it'd be a good idea to set it to music. And he said, okay, there's a little 4-track studio somewhere. We'll book you in for an afternoon and see what you come up with. Did a 12-inch and then did an album which was voted Reggae Album of the Year by Melody Maker in 78. That was Dread Beat and Blood.
Brothers and sisters rocking, a dread beat pulsing, fire burning, chocolate hour and darkness creeping, night, black veiled night is weeping, electric lights consoling, night, a small hall soaked in smoke, a house of ganja mist, music blazing, sounding, thumping, fire, blood, brothers and sisters rocking, stopping, rocking, music breaking out, bleeding out, thumping out, fire, burning, electric hour of the red bulb, staying in the brain with the blood flow, and the a bad thing is brewing. Ganja crawling, creeping to the brain. Cold lights hurting, breaking, hurting. Fire in the head and a dread beat, bleeding, beating, fire, dread. Rocks rolling over, heart sleeping while rage rising out of the heat and the hurt. And the fist curling anger reaches a her. Then flash of a blade from another to a him leaps out for a dig of a flesh of a piece of skin. And blood, bitterness, exploding fire, wailing blood and bleeding.
But I've been working with musicians over a long period. I started working with a group called Rasta Love. Some Rasta friends of mine who I went to school with, they had a group called Rasta Love. They were playing bass, funde and repeater. And they used to do their Rasta chants with the drums. And we had a flute player and a bass player sometimes with us too. And they used to play the drums, and I used to play percussion in the group as well.
At the heart of his artistic endeavors was his community activism.
I can't think of not being a part of the community. I grew up in the black community. I've always been a part of the black community. People in Brixton, where I grew up, know me by first name. There were people called me Poet.
War, say listen, oppressing man, hear what I say if you can. We have a previous blow. We will fight you in the streets with we hands. We have a plan, so listen man, get ready to take some blows. Those days of the truncheon and those nights of melancholy locked in a cell, those hours of torture touching hell, those blows that caused my heart to swell, were well numbered and are now at an end.
From school days, from I was a teenager, I've been involved in black organizations and been going on demonstrations, attending political meetings, rallies, organizing myself, selling newspapers on the streets, you name it. Various organizations, from the Black Panther Youth League to the Black Panther Movement fully, to the Black Workers Movement, to the Race Today Collective, the Black Parents Movement, and so on.
No run. You did sound your siren and it's war now. War. Special patrol will fall like a wall forced down or a town turned to dust. Even though them think them bold, we know them cold like ice with fear and lose fire. Choose your weapon them quick. All we need is buckles and bricks and sticks. We have fists, we have feet, we carry dynamite in the teeth. Send for the riot squad quick, cause we're running wild. Bitter like bile, blood will guide their way. And I say, all we're doing is defending, so get you ready. The war. Freedom is a very firm thing.
Race Today was started by Johnson and other former Black Panthers and was influenced by historian and writer C.L.R. James.
I came to know about C.L.R. James from the Panthers. We used to have study sessions in the Panthers. You know, we would take up like we study books like Capitalism and Slavery by Eric Williams, paragraph by paragraph, chapter, verse by verse, chapter by chapter, you know. And another book that we did was The Black Jacobins, and that's where I came across the name C.L.R. James. But even before that, when I became interested in books and in literature, I told you about John LaRose introducing me to a lot of African and Caribbean writers. He also introduced me to a novel by James called Minty Alley, which was the first West Indian novel I ever read.
Them can't get a room but Alice down there. The people them a ball, the mercy down there. Them can't get no mercy, mercy no down there. Come we go down there, make we take a stride down there. Come we go down there, make we forward down there. Gonna body it up, a body it up, a body it up. Come we go down there. The people them a fight for work down there. The people them a fight one another down there. The people them a fight for stay alive down there. The people them a fight for them rights down there. The people them a fight oppression down there. The people them a fight for them life down there. The people them a fight for survive down there. The people them a fight down there. So come we go down there. We make a stop down there. So come we go down there. Make we forward down there. Gonna body it up, a body it up, a body it up. Come we go down there.
The person who started the organization was also a Panther, Darcus Howe, and another one of the leadership members of the leadership was an Indian guy called Farouk Dundee, and he was also a Panther. In the Panthers in England, we always saw blacks as our definition of blacks was always a political definition, which always included people from Asia. When the Black Power movement died out, and there was a vacuum to be filled, and Darcus approached me and said he was forming an organization. I was happy to go and join.
But them can't keep him down, say them can't keep him down. Cause him a merciless realist, and him is not defeatist. Him stand up in the court like a mighty lion. Him stand up in the court like a man of iron. Darcus out of jail, race today cannot fail. Darcus out of jail, the people's will must prevail. The CDC were there, and when we pick it, the Pentonville, the RDC were there. And so we step it up the strand to make our stand. We step it up the strand to the courts of justice. Darcus out of jail, race today cannot.
What I identified with in James's philosophy was this idea that every cook can govern, that ordinary people can and must organize and manage their own affairs. That was it, it was quite simple and straightforward.
I am a merciless realist, and him is not defeatist. Him stand up in the court like a mighty lion. Him stand up in the court like a man of iron.
For example, I remember in the New Cross massacre in 1981 when some fascists threw an incendiary device into a house where some black kids were having a party and murdered 13 black children. That when we formed the New Cross Massacre Action Committee, it was an alliance of different organizations, a broad umbrella group consisting of all shades of political ideologies, from Maoist to Marxist to rabid black nationalists. And there was always conflicts between the nationalists and the more progressive elements within the thing. But never reaching the stage of confrontation.
The screaming and the crying and the dying in the fire.
We didn't know say it could have happened, you know. Anytime, anywhere. Far don't it happen to we and the Asians them already. But in spite of all that, everybody was still shocked when we get the cold facts about that brutal attack, when we find out about the fire over New Cross, about the innocent life them will last, about the physically scared, the mentally marred, and them relatives who take it so hard. And you know, although plenty people were surprised, you know said them kind of thing there could have happened to we in a this year Great Britain, in a London today. And a few get frightened and a few get subdued. Almost everybody had to sympathize with the loved ones of the injured and the dead. For this year massacre, make we come to realize it could have been me, it could have been you, or one of we picnic them who fell victims to the terror by night. But wait, you know remember how the whole of Black Britain did rock with grief, how the whole of Black Britain did turn a melancholy blue, not the possible blue of the murderer's eyes, but like the smoke of gloom on that cold Sunday morning. But stop, you know remember how the whole of Black Britain turned a fiery red.
The moving and the grooving and the dancing to the disco, then the panic and the pushing and the boring through the fire, the running and the jumping and the flames them rising higher, the weeping and the moaning, how the horror of the fire.
Is a hell of a something for true, you know. What a terrible price we have to pay, though, man. Just to live a little life, just to struggle to survive. Every day is just worries and struggle and strife. Imagine so much young people cut off in them prime, before the twilight of them time, without reason or rhyme, casting the shadow of gloom over our life. Look how the police and the press try them desperate best to put a stop to a quest for the truth. You remember? First them say it could be arson, then them say it could be not. First them say a firebomb, then them say it was not. Them implied could have white, them implied could have black, who responds for the attack against those innocent young blacks. Instead of raising the alarm, make the public know what go on. Plenty paper print pure lie for blind your public eye. And the police them plot and scheme, confuse and conceal. Me hear say even the poor parents of the dead them try to use. But you know, in spite of them wicked propaganda, we refuse to surrender to them ugly innuendo. For up till now, not one of them, neither Stockwell, neither Wilson nor Bell, not one of them can tell we why. Not one of them can tell we who. Who turned that night of joy into a morning of sorrow? Who turned the jollity into an ugly tragedy?
First the coming and the going in and out of the party, the dubbing and the rubbing and the rocking to the rhythm, the dancing and the skanking and the party really swinging, the laughing and the talking and the style.
One of the things about the Panthers, which was my first organization, is that it always had a revolutionary socialist perspective. The black experience was always our starting point, but we always went beyond that. The possibility of falling into a black nationalist trap didn't exist for me.
The crying and the dying in the fire, the panic and the pushing and the boring through the fire, the running and the jumping and the flames them rising high.